So BioWare are known for creating these great RPGs that people really seem to connect with. What do you think is the secret?
Well, at BioWare, we start with great stories, and we've learned over the years that great stories come from great characters. So we spend a lot of time on the characters themselves, characters you can get personally involved with, characters with a lot of depth, characters with backstory, characters with motivations. We've tried to build all of those things in the games over the years, and we're doing that now in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Well, I think it's really about bettering what's gone before. BioWare has a great legacy in the RPG market, but also from an artistic standpoint. So when we're approaching a game like Dragon Age Inquisition, really we're thinking, how can we make it bigger? How can it be more lush, more creatively fulfilling?
Where do you start with it? I mean, it's a big project. What's the kicking off point?
So the writers often have a lot of ideas, and they start by drafting out the characters themselves, the places they want to go in the lore, the kinds of scenarios they want the player to get involved in.
When we first start, we'll start talking in broad concepts, and we don't want the writers to get too far ahead. So we'll say noble knight or a thief with a heart of gold. We'll just start with sort of broad strokes.
What are the big do's and don'ts, would you say, of making a BioWare RPG?
Always make sure the story is there, and first and foremost, always make sure players feel like they're getting a big, epic story, something that you couldn't have in real life, something that feels like it's bigger than the player themselves.
Do's and don'ts. Well, you do want to give the player a feeling that their choices matter. That we're not saying that you have to feel this way about whatever choice is being presented or whatever is happening in the world. You may not always have a choice of what to do about it, but you should have a choice about who you are. When it comes to the followers, the people who travel with you in the story, they are the ciphers through which the player interacts with all the big themes. So if we have the Templars and Mages as being two big elements in this story, we're going to want somebody who embraces the view of the Templars, someone who embraces the view of the Mages, and gives it a personal face, because otherwise these are very abstract issues.
So would you say you've got any don'ts when it comes to making RPG?
Yeah, I think don't constrain your player too much. Definitely players want amazing, epic experiences. You can have intimate moments, you can have smaller moments in there, but they need to be there alongside the really big moments of the game. Other don'ts include, don't think you know what the player wants. You can tell a story, but how players will experience it is up to them.
Don't talk down to your audience. You can run with the assumption that your audience is smart enough to figure out things by context. Don't assume that your audience is only made up of one type of person. There's a lot of different people that play the game.
We're lucky with Dragon Age because you've got that ability to go in there, mine some really cool things. You still want to have a great story, we still want to have a beautiful world you can immerse yourself in, but the way you go about achieving that is very different.
Aaron, thank you very much, and make sure you look out for more videos from my trip to BioWare. I'm here with John and Michael at BioWare Edmonton, and these guys are going to give me a few tips and tricks on how to get started in Dragon Age Inquisition. So let's get started with the first and most important thing. Which race do you pick?
It kind of depends on what you want to go for. Each race has obviously its unique look. Dwarf has magic resist, so it's a little bit easier to fight against, the demonic enemies that you're going to be facing throughout it. Qunari has a melee defense, a little bit easier to tank stuff with that. Elves have range defense.
Range defense,
yes. Whereas the humans just get the easier pick of, you get one more ability points and allows you a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, so you can spend that ability point on another upgrade or another ability or another passive, anything, and that as a human you can just go that 1 point further that no one else can.
Which races do you guys play as?
I'm a dwarf female. My playthrough.
I go human because I like to get that extra oomph.
But dwarves can't be mages.
No, so I'm playing as a warrior.
We have 3 classes in Inquisition. You have a warrior, you have a mage, and you have a rogue.
How do you choose?
We're a party-based game, so you can choose what you want to play as. That's your character, but you already have your party to flesh out everything else that you don't have.
Yeah, you definitely want to try and have a balanced party, and having the followers there with so many options, it's really easy to find someone that both you like in the story, but can also support you in combat.
Who else is in your party?
I've got Varric as well. He's really awesome. He's got Bianca, the crossbow. I picked up Dorian recently. I loved Dorian so much in the story. I didn't care. I just had to push somebody out to get him in there. I can do this all day! And then, yeah, I also have Cassandra. So she's up there making sure that my guy can deal the damage, and so I don't have to be doing the tanking for the party.
So when players boot up the game for the first time, what would you say would be your top tips to get them started in combat?
Make sure you capitalize on combos as often as you can. Cross-class combos are the most effective, so setting up a state like freeze or paralyze with your mage, and then coming in with your warrior and hitting him with mighty blow to have a huge electrical explosion or shatter that frozen guy. Also, keep in mind the soft combos too. So abilities that may not seem like they work well together, but when you put them together, they work really well. So something like Pull of the Abyss and a Fire Mine.
And last of all, just it's an RPG, and it's one of the great things about us is just experiment, right? We've got respecs potions for everyone. It's pretty cheap to do, and it's fairly easy to just switch out what your party loadout is. So just experiment, see what interests you, and what is fun as an ability. I think we give you right away Winter's Grasp.
Yeah.
And that's just an amazing ability. It's single target, but it CCs, it does cold damage, and it freezes them for a short duration. And that's super useful.
Freezing someone solid is still going to be a good idea, 50 hours into the game, as soon as it was at level 1.
John and Mike, thank you very much. I feel prepared to lead the Inquisition now.
You're welcome.
Make sure you look out for more videos from my trip to BioWare. So I'm here with Ben McGrath, who is the lead environment artist here at BioWare Edmonton on Dragon Age Inquisition. So Ben, let's get things started. What exactly do you do here?
Well, I lead the team that creates all of the level art for the game.
So Inquisition is being made in Frostbite 3. How has that changed the way you guys work, especially when it comes to environments?
So Frostbite 3 has offered us much more advanced rendering capabilities than our previous engine, allowed us to have a lot of micro detail in the environment. We've got realistic water, we've got incredibly dense foliage, we've got wide open vistas and much, much greater environments than we've had before, much bigger environments than we've ever been able to do before.
How much bigger are we talking?
It's difficult to put an exact number on it, but I would say that any one of our zones is probably comparable in size to either of the previous 2 games, and we have about 10 of them.
How does the world itself help to kind of tell the story of what's happening in Inquisition?
We've tried to make it a lot more believable than before, and we've tried to populate it with evidence of the events that have been occurring in the story. But there's a lot of death, destruction visible in the world. There's a lot of buildings that have been destroyed. There's a lot of evidence of the Mage Templar conflict. We have plague wagons and corpses everywhere and people fighting.
So this time we're going to lots of different locations in Thedas. How are they kind of different from each other?
The world is divided into a lot of different areas, populated by different races. What we've done is we've actually created a bunch of different architectural styles. So we have Orlesian style architecture, we have Freelden, we have Dwarven, we have Elven, and we have the Tevinter style as well. They're all very different. On top of that, the different areas have different biomes. So some are arid, some are boreal, and some are temperate. Each area in the game can often be wildly different because it has different flora and fauna and a different architectural style.
What was the biggest challenge when you were developing it?
Coming up with systemic gameplay elements that layer on top of each other and allow for events to occur every 20 or 30 seconds or so in the world is really difficult.
Can you talk a little bit about these kind of events going around?
We have all kinds of things. We have your average skirmishes that go on, and we have bandits raiding areas, then we have mages and Templars fighting. We have these weird kind of but cool puzzle mechanics like the ancient view skulls that you can look through and find hidden stuff. We have astrariums where you solve logic puzzles, which are cool. But again, they open up hidden dungeons, find mounts, you can go hunting, it goes on and on.
So how have you managed to kind of balance the having stuff to do in the open world with sort of trying to keep people on track with the main story?
So that's exactly where the Inquisition mechanics come in. So everything that you do in the world feeds back into the concept of the Inquisition and this army that you're building. You can claim camps, and those give you a small base of operations. You can also claim keeps. And then the decisions you make throughout the story affect what's going on in the world. So depending on what you say or do, you can find Templars roaming the landscape, or mages, or bandits, and so on.
Ben, thank you so much for telling me about Dragon Age Inquisition's environments. For more on the game, make sure you look out for some more of our videos from here at BioWare Edmonton. I'm here at BioWare with Ryan Rozenki, who is the lead visual effects artist on Dragon Age Inquisition. So Ryan, whenever I think of visual effects, I think of movies. I think of real actors and then digital effects put in afterwards. How is it different for video games?
It's not so different. In film, what you can do with special effects drives the shot and all that. Similar to that in video games.
So when it comes to, attacking and combat, what visual effects might occur that we might not really notice as big visual effects?
There's quite a bit of work just in all the elemental upgrades to the weapons. They each have a unique impact and sound. It really brings a lot of depth into customizing your weapon, because you're rewarded when you equip it. You have now cool flames on your bow or whatever, or you're shooting different projectiles.
So would you say each character has their own sort of different style when it comes to the visual effects?
Every follower in Dragon Age has their own unique flavor to their combat. Like even the different, like you choose mage, but Vivian versus Solus versus some of the other enemy mages, they all have different magic.
So just walking around the levels, what kind of visual effects can you just see, just walking around?
Oh, you'll see tons of torches, and you'll see lots of campfires where people have set up camp. You'll see foggy areas. You'll see special, spectacular levels that have their own sets of unique effects. You'll see the changes from battle, like you'll see the destruction from a huge war, and you'll see how the impact that the Fade has on the environment.
Which is your favorite ability?
The meteor storm was fun. It went through like gigantic meteors to like medium meteors. But we're really happy with the way that it turned out.
Ryan, thank you so much. For more Dragon Age Inquisition goodness, make sure you keep your eye out for some more of my videos from my time here at BioWare Edmonton. Tactical cameras back. What was the rationale for bringing it back?
We do speak to our fans a lot, and we looked at what people loved about Dragon Age Origins and what they loved about Dragon Age 2. And there was definitely a sense that people wanted to be more thoughtful in combat. So the tactical camera is a great way to do that. So it allows you to pull the camera all the way up, pause the game, and have a think about the battlefield and sort of pan around and sort of see what's happening, what enemies you're facing against, where they're positioned, what they're doing, and then issue orders to particular characters in your party. Examples of it would be, there might be a choke point. And you want to sort of bunch up the enemies, in that sort of choke point so you can rain fiery death down on them. So you can send your warrior forward, hold the ground at that choke point. Whilst they're doing that, then you can maybe send your ranged attackers up on sort of cliffs or high ground and start slaughtering people.
The nice thing is, baseline, you can kind of pick how you want to play. If you're an action player, you can play without tactical cam, and you're going to get all the stuff that's sweet with action. If you like to, take time out of the equation, moment to moment, think through every single move, then tactical cam lets you do that. I'm kind of more straight in the middle, so I'll start off a fight in tactical cam, scout the area, see what I'm up against, then I'll maybe dive in with action after putting in a couple commands through tac cam. And then if things get really crazy, sometimes I need to just take a step back and be like, okay, everybody stop, because I need to know what to do now.
It can be somewhat of a pressure valve for players. They can feel sometimes overwhelmed with how much is going on. Every now and then, if I get into tough spots or tough combat encounters, that's when I'll pull up the tactical camera and be like, okay, well, what do I need to do here, and be a bit more thoughtful. We've added movement lines into the tactical camera, so when you tell someone to go move to a certain spot or hold a certain spot, it will draw a line about how they're going to get to that spot, which is good information to have about pathing of enemies and your characters. And then we've also added in an ability when they're panning around in the tactical cam, they can hover over enemies and they can see information on that enemy. And the more that you research and the more that you fight that type of enemy, the more information is going to be available to you. So you may see things like their health, their armor, what strengths or weaknesses they have. It's extra information. It's another layer on top of the original tactical camera. We've added in a kind of like a slow-mo to the tactical camera that allows you to plan out your moves and then pull the trigger, and it sort of advances time a little bit, and you just release the trigger and it pauses it again. And that's been a really interesting feature, because what we found is that players go in and out of tactical combat a lot more than they used to in the previous games. So in Origins, it was very much like players would either play in tactical or in action in real time. And they never really go between the two. In Inquisition, we're finding that they're definitely going in and out a hell of a lot more. So I think that'll feel a lot more fluid and a lot more seamless experience as they play through.
BioWare is known for these, fantastic characters people really identify with. So can you tell me a little bit about the journey from initial conception all the way through to the final game?
Character creation is it takes a huge amount of iteration on the part of many departments to really come with a finished and believable character that people will identify with.
Each time the breach expands, your mark spreads, and it is killing you.
So how do the writers and the artists work together?
We could work in a bubble, I suppose, and write what the character is, the story, and so forth. And I think it's always better when we work as a team.
We start working with the writers and the designers to really get an idea of the world, get an idea of how the characters are going to react to each other, their personalities, and then we take that to the concept artists, we start sketching up.
The visual appearance of the characters takes a lot of work and again takes a lot of iteration. So it could be hair, or it could be the shape of the face, making all these things look realistic enough for players to be able to get attached to, is very, very difficult. But you definitely see it sort of moves along, and then suddenly it's like bang, and it's unreal, and you're like, wow, that's amazing.
Aren't you charming?
So you have that eureka moment where the character just sort of appears.
I think you really do when and it's often actually quite late in development when there's a lot of tech that's been built and a lot of animation's been done and the voice actors have been working, and then at some point you look at it one day and you're like, you look at the next thing and you're like, wow, that's actually amazing.
The key is to try and get inside the character and figure out what their personality is and how that's going to manifest itself in a physical way. We have a great new character in Dragon Age Inquisition called Iron Bull. He's a Qunari warrior, and being Qunari, he's huge and muscular.
Iron Bull, I presume.
Yeah, the horns usually give it away.
And he has some wonderful lines as well. He's voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. And he's brought a wonderful amount of personality to the character. And all these things go into the kind of iterative melting pot that the artist can work with. So for instance, Iron Bull he only has one eye, he has an eye patch, so it instantly suggests that there's a backstory around Iron Bull. How did he lose it? Why does he adopt the patch? And those kind of little sort of creative tweaks can really influence people's perceptions of a character, and they can go all the way through from just his physical manifestation to the clothing that he wears, to the equipment that he carries, and of course when you get actually into the game and playing it, the moves that he makes.
They'll like put a detail on a piece of concept art and like some part of their clothing, which they thought that might be interesting, and then we'll see that and we'll go, hey, that's kind of neat, and we'll sort of springboard off of that.
There's a lot of stress that builds up as you make these games, and everyone's working so hard, and you want everything to be perfect. So when you see things finally come together, whether it be characters or whether it be environments or story or acting, whatever that thing is that you just really want to nail, finally gets there, it's incredibly rewarding.
Here at BioWare, we like to make our sound for our games unique and authentic. Things like birds, animals, trees, wind, footsteps, things like that. So, do you guys hear that? So we've gotten pretty lucky, and we managed to track down the dragon to its lair behind the trees. Cody's getting set up now, and he's gonna go in and get the sound for us.